Buenas tardes a todos y a todas.
Good afternoon, everybody. Believe me, I am as nervous as you are, or perhaps even more. It is a great pleasure, a great honor, what is about to happen here. We've got Toru Iwatani here, the creator of Pac-Man, with us. And we are going to give him the Video Game Legend Award to him. We had to give it to him, of course. But we are going to ask him a few questions. I'll act, or I have acted as a catalyst. I've gleaned all these questions from the internet, Facebook, some students, some professors, and Mr. Iwatani is also going to talk about education and video games, Professor Iwatani, because this is what he does now, he teaches. And so the community is asking him questions. And the first question I will ask, let me just crack on and go straight to it. This is a question that came from Twitter, from Uriol Boida, a well-known web designer. And the question is, could you explain why is Pac-Man fun?
Encantado. My name is Toru Iwatani. Pac-Man がなぜあんなに楽しいかっていうのは
Why? Well, first, because the rules are very simple. It is very easy to visualize. You just look at the piece of cake to eat. You just need to eat and avoid those ghosts. Everybody understands this, right? For a game, it is very important that at first glance you know what you are to do. And since I wanted to capture, or rather attract the ladies, I created very cute characters and very funny characters to attract the female audience. This is the answer. Well, thank you. I have now a question from my nephew, who is 14. And the question is, do you remember the first idea that led you to creating this game? A 14-year-old nephew, okay. He needs to study an awful lot, right? Well, usually what you hear is, let me look it up on the internet. Okay, first, convey this to your 14-year-old nephew. But now I will answer, okay?
Nos situemos a la época
think back, go back to the time when you weren't even born, 1980. There were no computers or anything like that in homes.
作り始めた36年前はビデオゲームはアーケードゲームセンターに行かないとゲームができなかったんです。
O sea, cuando nació
When Pac-Man was born 35 years ago, I had been thinking about it for a year, so I created it 36 years ago, and you had to go to arcades to play. If you wanted to play, you had to go there.
といった殺伐としたゲームでプレーをするのは男の人ばっかりで男の遊び場だったんですね。
era un sitio para divertirse.
Arcades were a place to have fun, exclusively boys, because the themes were warriors, they were chasing each other and killing each other. It was all very aggressive. It was very much a male-dominated environment.
男でもう
Nada más entrar en el centro,
As soon as you went through the door, you saw it was stinking, it was dark, it was all blokes.
なので女性に来てほしかった。
yo quería tener,
And I wanted to create a much more cheerful atmosphere and attract the girls.
クラブね、ディスコは嫌でしょ。
¿os imagináis una
Imagine a disco, a club with only men, with only boys.
女性ができるビデオゲームを作るということで、優しい女性がちゃんとプレイできる殺すというゲームじゃないコンセプトで考え始めました。
And so what I did was start thinking about how can I attract the female audience? What do I need to create? What kind of atmosphere, of environment do I need to create? Something that is nice and gentle where girls can play.
Y pensé, ¿qué es lo que le gusta?
And so I thought, what would girls like? Fashion,
O enamoramiento, amor.
love stories,
Pero esto no se conectaba con
but that wasn't connecting to games.
女性と食事すると食事終わった後、ね、ケーキが別腹でパクパクパク食べてる。
Entonces yo cuando tenía ocasión
And
de comer o cenar con las
so when I had the opportunity to have lunch or dinner with women, what I would do was actually, save up a bit of space for dessert. But
entonces llegué a la conclusión de que a las chicas les gusta mucho comer.
I realized that they did too. So I got to the conclusion that girls like eating.
なんかいろいろあるみたいですね。
Bueno, me parece que tenéis experiencias, ¿eh?
Right, I can see that you agree to what I'm saying, right? You've experienced it.
動詞をキーワードにしました。食べるという動詞。
Entonces yo fijé
So basically, I noticed that, and my keyword was eat, to eat, the verb to eat.
ゲームをいっぱい考えるときに、私は辞書の動詞を調べる。
yo cuando pienso
When I think about creating a game, I always think about a verb, an action,
porque casi todos los juegos
because most games begin with a verb.
correr,
Run,
golpear,
hit something,
empujar,
push,
rodear,
surround,
todo
or go around.
empieza con un verbo.
Everything is an action, a verb. So you need to think in those terms. What's the action? What's the verb?
Yo pensé
And so I thought,
la comida, comer.
food, eating, then to eat.
の時に丸いピザを頼んで一辺を取って食べたら残った形がパンとか。
Entonces, a la hora de comida pedí un pizza, había pedido un pizza.
So I was having lunch one day and I ordered a pizza, cut out a piece, and that was the shape of Pac-Man.
Esta es la forma.
I thought, hey, this is the shape it's going to have. There it is.
ゲームの要素として
Hay otro elemento muy importante.
There's another very interesting element in the game.
Ahora empiezo la lectura.
Okay, this is when I start my lecture.
敵っていうものを
Hay que crear un enemigo aparte de tu
Apart from yourself, you need an enemy in a game.
何にもスリル
Es que si no hay enemigo,
Because if you don't have an enemy, you don't have this feeling that you need to do something, this scary feeling. So basically, I came up with the ghosts as the enemies. That's the answer for your nephew. My nephew is going to be happy for 100 years thanks to this wonderful answer. And I had a question from my son, which you have also answered about the characters. So you've made these two boys and many more people happy with your answers. Thank you so much. Okay, let's just now see the first video capsule, which is a question from a game designer, Jordi Serra. It's capsule 1, if we could watch it.
I am Jordi Serra, and I work as a game designer in Oscar at Cookiebox. And it's a pleasure for me to say hello to Iwatani's son, father of Pac-Man, a living legend of video games, and a game designer too. For that reason, I would like to know, what is your definition of game? Thank you, and sayonara.
The definition of what a game is, right? There are many studies, many academicians that define it. And game theory defines it too. We relate to the GMCT uses this definition for game. A game is a toy, something to play with. There is also another definition in Japan used for lawsuits in the courts of law. It is a phenomenon where you establish who wins the case freely within space and time. It is a very long definition, is it not? So let me just give you the definition then. This is what game is. A game is a situation where the parties play on the basis of a set of rules. And this is a very broad definition, of course. The definition usually includes several definitions, and there could be several people playing. So the most important thing is for each and every one of you to be able to define what game is for you. This must be a very central piece in your mind, central piece of your thinking. And so when you create a game, if you have doubts, you can always go back to that place, to your own definition of game and that game. Each and every one has to have his or her own definition. That's the way. And as time goes by and you have more experience creating games, that definition will be fine-tuned and will get more ingredients and become more complete. So you must be able to define in your own terms. Have you done it already? Yes? Have you come up with a definition already? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now I've got a question from a student from MT, the School of New Extractive Technologies. By the way, I'm Oscar Garcia. I'm the director, the academic director of MT. The new Creative Technologies School, and I have a student called Damian who asked me to ask Professor Iwatani this. What did you feel the first time you saw somebody you didn't know playing with your game? It was some time ago, right? Yes.
ビデオゲームが今スマートフォンで簡単自由にすぐにゲームができる時代と35年前はやっぱり違ってましたので、ビデオゲームを人々に認めてもらうための30年間ずっと活動をしてきました。ですから、まずゲームをプレイしない人たちに押し付けるっていうことはしない方がいいと思いますね。自然と目の前にあるもので触れてみて、そこで興味を持ったらゲームを好きになってくださいというふうに今思ってます。
Nowadays, most of us have smartphones. 35 years ago, there was nothing like that. So it's a huge difference. What I can tell you for sure is that you must not impose, you must not force people, of course. You just have to let it happen. Just let it happen naturally. Just let people get used to the game. Because if a friend says, this is a very interesting game, you have to play it, then you think sometimes you're just reluctant to do it because you cannot be forced to play. You need to discover it for yourself, how fun a game is. Thank you. Let us watch the second capsule. And then after that, we'll watch the first video that Professor Iwatani wants to show us. The second capsule is a question. And this is a question from Jose Cuesta from ESNE, which is a center where they teach gaming also in Madrid. I would like to ask, what do you think current video games preserve from the spirit of ancient video games such as Pac-Man? In current video games, that's the question. What are the components, the elements that Professor Iwatani believes are still there, inherited or alive still from the original Pac-Man spirit?
Yes. 先ほどパックマンのシンプルなゲーム、いわゆるゲーム性の中で複雑にしないということですね。みんなはどちらかというとゲームフィーチャーもつけよう、このルールもつけようということでどんどん膨れ上がって最後には複雑で目的のわからないやろうという気持ちにならないゲームに出来上がっちゃうんですね。ですから常に取っていく、シンプルに仕上げていくっていう考え方がパックマンの一つの考え方が継承されていってるんじゃないかなっていうのが一つありますね。
I believe one of the concepts that has been preserved from Pac-Man days is simplicity, basically. I was saying that you must not make games too complicated. You must not overcomplicate games with too many rules, too many specifications, because that detracts from the appeal. And in order to simplify the rules, there's a previous procedure you need to go through, which is to compile and collect all the rules you know of, to study them all. You must not add everything, but you need to just compare everything and collect all these ideas, do a compilation. On the basis of that, you start eliminating or doing away with the things that are not interesting. And once you have two columns, as it were, in the end, you've got two notions, then you focus, you zoom in with the design. In other words, making things simple and straightforward is not easy. You need to first open wide, collect as much information as you can, and then at a further stage, simplify until you cut away anything that's superfluous. But of course, don't you think it's difficult to do away with concepts and notions? So you can imagine how hard and complex the process is. I believe this is something that people are still doing. Thank you. Can we show the first video that Professor Iwatani wanted to show us? Let me explain a little bit what we are going to watch then. I am thinking of a new game expression within a university context. There are displays, TV displays, which are square, rectangular. We also have smartphones. And there's always a display, there's always a screen. And of course, there are controllers, right? And then there's the gamers. And combining those three elements in one is what we're trying to do at university. Display or screen that we locate all over the world, the body. Like controllers, which again, the controller is yourself. And that's how we come up with new expressions, a new artistic expression. So I want you to see it. Can we see the first video? Let's watch it. The name is Gaming School. This is where you have all the displays. They go from one hand to the other. It's not very fast still, but you can see how it works. Now it goes from your hand to your leg. Sorry, the interpreter corrects herself. That was a mistake, she says. It goes to the right leg here. So you see, we are still developing it. It's not very fast still, and the sensors are not working too well. You can't dance or anything like that. But if there are two people, you could go from one to the other. So it's a new game, really. We are researching this kind of concept right now. Okay, there are so many developers here, and we'll know how difficult it is for technology to work well. So let's give a big hand, because he's showing us this research project that's amazing. Wonderful. Okay, next question. This is a question that came via Twitter. And this is a question from Albert Murillo. Albert wants to know this. Mr. Iwatani, do you think we're getting to a stage where girls and boys, little children, are more interested in designing the games rather than playing the games? Would we be getting to that point?
それは今の子どもたちはもう生まれた時から周りにゲームがあります。まずは PC になりますし、それからセルラーフォンのゲームがありますし、コンソールゲームですね、プレイステーションですね。ですからもうゲームが周りにあって、ゲームをする環境が周りにあるので、もう随分すぐにゲームができるというふうに思いますので、これは特に、子どもたちにですね、それを取り上げるということはできないと思いますので、どういうコンテンツを子どもたちに皆さん作っていくかという、こちらの方を考えた方がいいと思いますね。コンテンツの中には血がドバッと出るような、ちょっとこうやってしまいたくなるゲームがあるので、やっぱりちゃんとした自分なりの倫理観で考えた表現というのはとても大事だと思います。
Well, today, children, as soon as they are born, almost, they are surrounded by all these devices and technology, mobiles, PlayStations, consoles, and so on. So taking away all these devices is not advisable, I don't think. What we should do is to find content that is adequate and bring into the equation certain ethical considerations. That is what we should do. Perfect. Thank you. Third video capsule now, please. This is a question from a researcher, a game designer from the big university, the autonomous big university, Ruth Contreras, and this is her question for Mr. Iwatani.
Hi, I'm Contreras, game designer and professor. You left the video game industry to work at university, teach game development, and pursue the study of game theory for social good. My question is, why did you leave the video game industry? What makes university so special or attractive to you? Thank you.
Ruth is asking, why did he leave the industry to go to university? What's so important or interesting, so attractive about university? I've worked in a company called Manga for 30 years. And during my time at Namco, once in a while, I had the opportunity to go to university, to the Polytechnic University, the Polytechnic and Arts University in Tokyo and explain what we did. And so I was feeling very fascinated. It was really attractive to me, the spirit that I saw in the classroom. So I started thinking that perhaps teaching these young people before they went into work and start designing games would be interesting, because I could teach the philosophy of gaming in such a way that I could actually convey and transmit some useful information. And so 8 years ago, the new department, the new games department was created at that university, and I was asked whether I wanted to come and teach. This is 8 years ago.
And also there I can do research into gaming. If you work for a video game company, what you do has to be profitable somehow, or else you're not allowed to spend money. For example, what you just saw, I would never have been allowed to do at a company. So I decided to go from industry to university to start blazing my own new path. So, in summary, two things. First, I was attracted to the youth, the young students. And second, at the university, you can do research, which you can't at a company. Great. Thank you very much. This is a wonderful masterclass that you're giving us with lots of content. We're going to have to watch this video 10 times, and I'm sure we're going to love it more and more as we watch it. Now, this question comes from me. Is there anything about studying video game development at university that you cannot learn at university? What was the question? Is there anything that you cannot teach at university? Something that, students have to bring with themselves, something they're not going to learn at university? Peter, he starts with a figure. What you can learn at a university is just 20% out of everything you need to do video games. You need to get out on the street, go to museums, take part in events, organize concerts even, because what's important is to learn to please people. That's what gaming is about. You've got to think of other people. How can you make people laugh? How can you make people smile? That's also important. For example, it's very different, isn't it, to go to a live concert and feel that emotion. It's not the same as watching that on internet, is it? So I think it's important to get out. Go out in the street, learn, live in your skin. So reality, quite precisely. Thank you. I had a student who then worked with me as an intern. And we worked together on 2 research projects for video games here for Digital Legends Entertainment. We also did research, published a couple of articles for conferences such as Eurographics. And he decided to leave and go to the US and study a master's on video games at University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And from there, he got an internship at LucasArts, one of George Lucas's companies back then. He spent 4 years working at 1313, which is a development by Star Wars, which, as you know, was cancelled. It disappeared. So this guy, having spent a year with his own technology as an entrepreneur in San Francisco, has now been hired by Pixar. His name is Paul. And he's sending you a question from California. It is our 4th capsule. Let's listen to Paul.
Today to be able to do this question. I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in San Francisco. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Paul. I work at Pixar, and but today I just have a very personal question for you. I'm a big fan of your work. I've obviously played your game, but I would like to know. You've had a really long career, so I would like to know what is your biggest learning that you can tell us about, but also I would like to know what you consider as your biggest mistake in regards of the career, the industry, product, whatever you feel comfortable. And I just wanted to thank you, Oscar, for the opportunity to ask this question. Have a good one. Bye.
Bueno, Paul le pregunta.
So Paul is asking about the biggest mistake you've had, and well, what has been the mistake you've learned the most from? Well, I don't think that you could say that learning a lot could be a mistake. I think that when you learn too many things, it's just too many figures. So it's important to be able to discriminate, to eliminate. Just like bad memories we get rid of, we just let them go. You have to learn to let go in life and stick to what's essential. There's something which is very important, and I'd like to mention it here. Nowadays, we are in the midst of a constant, we are bombarded by a constant stream of data, information from the net, from computers, films, screens, smartphones. So I think our attitude shouldn't be to just, being washed down by this rain of information, but rather to learn to discriminate and be selective. Or else our capacity to reflect and to think about things will suffer, will be diminished. Man has the capacity to cultivate, to develop its imagination based on very, very short sentences. So when we are bombarded by all this data and information, we're talking about 100, 200 giga. You see, the opposite is to have like a 5 kilobyte text. Say a poem, for example. You see, based on these very short sentences, you can imagine a whole scene in your mind. That's what we need to cultivate. That's what the capacity, the skill we need to develop nowadays. Great. Would you like to add anything? Do you know about haikus? Japanese poems, 5, 7, 5, 17 syllables. Can you raise your hand if you know about haikus? Excellent. Oh, I'm so happy. You've made me so happy. What we need to develop is this skill to learn, to understand these 5, 7, 5 syllables. He's quoted a very famous haiku. In the silence, the song of the cicada. Not the cigars, the cicada, like crickets, filtering through the rocks. So you can imagine a strong rock and the song of the cicada penetrating in the rock. Excellent. Thank you. Well, let's give him a round of applause, shall we? I have another question from Twitter, from Hector Fuste. He wants to ask Professor Iwatani-san about the role to be played by subjects such as philosophy or psychology in game design.
ゲームなのかとか、なぜゲームで人を喜ばせようと思うんだろうかというようにゲームを見つめ直すというきっかけがとても大事だと思います。
Well, first of all, philosophy is very important because it makes us reflect about the nature of gaming. What is a game? Why do we have to please people? And thus, it makes us reflect on the nature of games. So, you have to ask yourselves, why am I creating a game? Ask yourselves that. Psychology is also very important, because when a game is created, you've got to think about how you're going to move people or how you're going to please people. So in this respect, psychology plays a very important role. Thank you. Let's go on to the fifth capsule. We're going to find a colleague from the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, the UPC, Ricard, who also teaches video games. And he's got a question for Professor Iwatani-san.
Mr. Iwatani, so my question would be, what are your sources of inspiration? What you would tell the students that want to become game designers, how to foster their own creativity, to find really good ideas to make video games? Thank you.
La pregunta es, ¿cuáles son sus fuentes de inspiración?
So the question is, what are your sources of inspiration, and what would you say to video game students for them to develop their inspiration, to feed their inspiration? Both inspiration and ideas don't really just come out of our head just like that. No, that's not how it works. And you, ever since you were born, up until now, all the information, all the data that you have received, that is all in your head, in your brain. So, an idea is a mere combination of data. For example, if from birth until now, if you've just picked up, say, 4 ideas, how many combinations can we make? Permutations on 4? If there are only 4 ideas, if you combine them in 2s, how many combinations can we create with 4? How many permutations? How many? 3? Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. if we only have 4 ideas, we'd have 6 potential combinations, right? You have 4. You have a square, yeah, with a line, 2 diagonal lines dividing it. But I would say it's pretty impossible for any of you to have gathered only 4 ideas from birth up until now. I think that in here, the amount of data we have is thousands of millions. And when all those data are combined in a particularly weird manner, that's a good idea. So the higher the number of data, the number of potential combinations and permutations increases. That means you need to act. You need to act in order to acquire data. I teach my students how a spider catches insects. I didn't tell the gentleman. It's a shame because I have a great video of. I had a scene with Pac-Man before, right? And you know, spiders weave spiders' webs so that they can feed themselves to catch, to trap insects. Well, in the world, there are spiders who are very, very clever at trapping insects in a funny manner. With the 4 front legs, they weave their web and they hang from it. And when an insect goes by on the floor, on the ground, they just fall, let themselves fall on the insect. I think there are very few people who are aware about how these spiders trap these insects. But you see, if you know that, if you have that idea, you can use it to create your next video game. I usually teach this, and my students are all squirmish, and they say, "Oh, how disgusting." I always say, we've got to know the world, the real world, insects, microbes, even virus. I always say that to my students. That's great, thank you. Do you want to see that? I do have the file. It's a bit disgusting, if anybody's squeamish. Yeah? Yeah? Honest? Oh, we're okay for time. Okay, everybody breathe hard, you know. God knows what's going to happen now. He's just going to plug it in.
Bueno, ya veis que es una persona.
So as you can see, he is a really affable guy, very humble, amazing knowledge. It's great. I mean, what a wonderful masterclass. We're going to have to watch this video 5 times to really take everything in. This is going to be really useful for all our work, to do play tests, to refine some of the games we've got here next door. And now he wants to show us something. We'll see. And there is something else that he wants to share with us. But let's go to the spider first. I also wanted to, well, first of all, apologize because I've got an awful lot of questions from everybody. And the truth is that he is sort of destroying our statistics. You know, people say, oh, you've got Japanese guests. They answer with monosyllabic answers. Well, that's just not been the case, which is great, wonderful content. So I'd rather filter questions than just have lots of little scattered questions. So if any of you see that I'm not going to ask your question, my apologies, because we do have limited time. If it were up to me, I'd be happy to be here until 3 in the morning, but I'm not sure what Iwatani-san would have to say to that. Okay, I believe we're all set up.
Pues vamos a ver el vídeo.
It's finished. She reaches down with her forelegs to check how far away she is from the ground. Then she snips most of the framework threads and holds the fuzzy rectangle between her 4 front legs. She's ready. Her enormous eyes are so sensitive she can hunt in near darkness. A bush cricket would make a rich meal, but it's very powerful and it could put up a good fight.
Así es, se atrapa. Esto se puede aplicar directamente al juego.
We can apply that directly to games, can't we?
Quiere decir que queremos que
I mean,
ir enriqueciendo cada vez más los
we need to widen our knowledge. That's a great metaphor. Thank you. I've got lots of questions here from students: Javier, Adrián, Mar, Victor, Luis, Urión. But I want to see the second video now. So I'm going to ask you the question that Carla gave me for you. Carla is a student at NT, and she said to me, I don't know whether this might be a spoiler, but I think perhaps Pac-Man is trying to kill Mr. Iwatani in Pixels film, and I would like to know why. Pac-Man is being manipulated from outer space, you see, from a different planet. It's not really Pac-Man. Ah, okay, so Carla is going to be much assured by that. Thank you. So let's go to the second video from the film. Thanks.
Thank you. Gracias. どうもありがとうございます。
Bueno, como
Okay. Centipede was also on the screen. It was designed by a woman, by the way, and we've got a woman who's a wonderful interpreter and translator. I want to ask for a big hand for Maite. And now, I think we can give him the Video Game Legend Award, if that's okay. So let's give him a big applause, big round of applause for Professor Iwatani.
Sí, bueno, le cedo la palabra a Iván.
I'll give the floor to Ivan.
¿Sabéis hacer grabación para este señor?
Bueno. Bueno, lo primero de todo.
First of all, thank you, Maite and Oscar, for this wonderful interview. It was a treat. And before we give him this award, this well-deserved award, I want to just very briefly take stock. 11 years ago, when Gamelab was born, many didn't know about the event. I didn't even know about it until much later, but Gamelab came to being as a result of a lab in a university, a project for specialized training that we called Gamelab back in the day in a very small city. It's my city, and it's very tiny, and I like talking about this. Somewhere, Mieres, very tiny, based on coal economy up in the north, where a few crazy people who worked at university, we thought a good alternative to the coal economy was the economy of creativity and video games. And it took us quite some time to get people to stop calling us the crazies. And if anything, in these 11 years that have gone by, what we've seen is that more people from the academic spheres and scientists have started to realize they needed to train a new generation of video game designers, admiring the work of pioneers such as you, enjoying the evolution of current games, and always, always more than anything else, focusing on a very special activity, which is making sure that all these people who have grown up with that language, the video game language, could become great creators, feeding from the teachings from those pioneers, ensuring that they move forward, looking into the future, creating, enriching experiences, which we call video games today, and God knows what we'll call tomorrow. And so this award, more than a recognition to Toru Iwatani, Pac-Man's creator, which of course it is. Of course, he is a very influential person for the whole industry. But I would like to also make this into a recognition to the whole of academia, all the professors who are helping train new professionals and improve and make the industry a better industry day by day. And so I give Professor Iwatani this award, and I give it to Professor Iwatani in that sense.
どうもありがとうございます。Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Gracias. 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 どうもはいありがとうございました。どうもありがとうございます。
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Pues muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for making it through the second day of Gamelab with us. At 8:30, Professor Iwatani, we're going to have the Spanish Developers Awards ceremony. Everybody's going to be here for that. And on behalf of all of them and my own name, thank you for coming to receive this award that we're giving you. And we trust someday we'll be able to have here at the stage of a future Game Lab some or many of your students at the Polytechnic Tokyo University. Thank you so much from all of us.